Side. Thank you for spending time with us. Betsy's off today. Lynna Lai is in her place. I'm Jay Crawford. Lynna, welcome to you.
Thank
and a
you.
very good Thursday afternoon.
Yes.
I mean, what a day. What a day.
I know. I hope people got to enjoy it. I'm going to be honest. I did nothing but housework.
Well, at least you could look out the window and understand that it was beautiful out there. It really is. All right, we begin today at 5 with some startling news. This is concerning some of our local school districts. The state has released report cards for districts across Ohio. They're doing things a little differently, not assigning letter grades. Instead, it's a modified look at how our schools are doing. And similar to last year, which only had a limited amount of data because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Manny Abraham joins us now. She's live in our newsroom with what the report cards do tell us. Manny, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jay. Yeah, one thing we know is that state officials are not surprised because of the significant impact left by the COVID-19 pandemic. No letter grades, as you mentioned, this year, but a look into some data like performance index marks, graduation rates, and attendance. The Ohio Department of Education says schools were impacted in different ways, with each having remote or hybrid learning models. There were some noticeable differences. 24% of Ohio's K-12 students, almost 380,000 students, chronically absent. And there were lower performance index marks this year across the district, across the state, throughout the districts. And we spoke to the Ohio Department of Education on some of those numbers.
Especially at this, at the state level, that it was some of our most historically underserved students who were most impacted by the pandemic. Our economically disadvantaged students, for example, who saw larger decreases. By and large, schools are back into a somewhat normal. Things are not exactly, things are not exactly how they were before. And so, sort of understanding the long-term impact is, these are the things that are going to be years down the road.
Now, the state is viewing the results as a new baseline to keep track of progress and also to really look at the long-term effects of the pandemic on education. Now, you can see how your school did this year and look at and compare some of the trends from years past. We have that link up at WKYC.com. Plus, we're going to have more for you tonight at 6. Jay?
All right, Amani, thank you very much.
Booster shots are one step closer for the Moderna vaccine. An FDA advisory panel recommended emergency authorization late this afternoon for people ages 65 and up, as well as adults at high risk for disease and those who are frequently exposed at work. President Biden also spoke a short time ago, saying that 66 million eligible Americans are still unvaccinated. That is down, however, from 97 million in July.
Every day, we see more businesses implementing vaccination requirements, and the mounting data shows that they work.
And we'll have more on today's booster developments coming up at 5:30 with Dr. John Torres.
A female police lieutenant has filed a case in federal court against the city of Beachwood, where she is employed, alleging gender discrimination and retaliation by the former chief and 2 captains at the department. Brandon Simmons has been following this story. He's live in Beachwood with details. Brandon, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jay. I want to tell you, Lieutenant Lisa Budney is a 15-year veteran with the police department here in Beachwood. And despite that long history, she and her attorney say things need to be changed in the department, alleging years of mistreatment. Now, I want to take you inside the lawsuit that they filed. This all started when Budney went on medical leave back in 2018 for a hysterectomy. When she returned, she says then Chief of Police Gary Haba commented, "Who's the new guy?" insinuating the procedure made her less of a woman. On another occasion, Haba allegedly called Budney a derogatory term, referring to a picture he had seen of her wearing a dress. Now, even after Haba retired, the problems continue with the 2 police captains who didn't take complaints seriously and even changed a sick leave policy to specifically affect Budney. Now, her attorney says the way Budney is being treated by the department is part of a culture that Haba built.
Some of the allegations in the complaint, as you know, transpired after Haba had left, and many of the same actors who were involved in the allegations during the Haba regime are still there and still behaving in ways that we think are not only unacceptable but in violation of the law.
Now, the complaint also says Budney was a victim of retaliation after coming forward with her complaints, as she was passed over for a promotion to a position that she was more than qualified to hold. Now, we did reach out to the city of Beachwood asking if they wanted to talk about the situation inside the department or specifically these allegations. A spokesperson told us the city does not comment on pending litigation, Jay.
All right, Brandon Simmons live tonight on What's New. Brandon, thank you.
Also released today, this week's unemployment numbers in Ohio specifically. Just over 9,800 initial unemployment claims were filed last week. That's over 600 more than the previous week. Nationally, unemployment claims dropped to 293,000, which is being reported as the smallest number of people to apply for benefits since March 2020. Well, we are just 9 months into 2021, but 10 months into 2021. But TSA agents nationwide already set a record for the number of guns that they've confiscated.
Yeah, this story mystifies me. It really does. I'm surprised the number was so large. It's a huge problem, and officials at Cleveland Hopkins addressed it locally today. Sarah Shookman has been following that story. She joins us now with details. Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, guys, we've been talking about the unruly passengers, right? You've probably seen the videos of people on airlines who are not treating flight attendants very well. Well, this stems way before we get to that part in the security line. We're learning about a new problem there where passengers are bringing guns into the airport in numbers TSA hasn't seen before. TSA has found nearly 4,500 guns this year at 248 airports, and Cleveland Hopkins is one of them. So is Akron Canton. We talked to Hopkins officials today who say they have confiscated 19 loaded guns in 2021, and that's actually slightly below the local annual average, but they're finding this same behavior is leading up to this. They say people are forgetting they are carrying loaded guns on their person or in their carry-ons.
Pretty consistently what we find is people have lost awareness that they had their weapon in a bag because they're so used to, going about whatever it is they do day to day with that weapon in a particular bag or in a particular position.
It's hard to imagine for those who aren't carrying regularly, but for those who are, it is still a very expensive accident. You have to appear in federal court, and the TSA says the typical first offense for bringing a gun to a checkpoint is a fine for more than $4,000. Concealed carry permit holders may still make their flights, and eventually they could get their gun back. But those without that special license, they'll be arrested on the spot and face local charges as well. So you can travel with a gun or ammo, but it must be checked at the ticket counter and declared. We're going to go over that process a little bit more tonight at 6 o'clock. Guys, the good news is they say here in Cleveland, they've never found a case with nefarious intent. These aren't people who are bringing a gun with any intent to harm anyone, but still, going to open up some eyes out there to see how easy people are forgetting they've got this.
And that $4,000 fine is probably going to be the reminder they need the next time around.
I would hope you only do this once, right?
I love when you go in the airport, they have that display of the weapons that have been confiscated, and you see like throwing stars and nunchucks. You're like, where are the ninjas coming through?
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy what they find.
It is interesting, very interesting.
All right. Sarah, thank you. Well, Cleveland voters are now less than 3 weeks away from electing a new mayor. And last night, candidates Kevin Kelly and Justin Bibb appeared in a town hall forum. It was a wide-ranging discussion that included the issues of undecided voters, the digital divide, and government experience. Our Russ Mitchell moderated and asked both about their plans for the Cleveland Division of Police.
Justin Bibb, A through F, what grade would you give the Cleveland Division of Police as far as the work that it does?
A D.
A D. Why?
People don't trust the police right now in our city. And I'm a son of a cop. And it's important that we look internally as a department to identify how do we change the culture of not just fairness between residents, police, but how do we change the culture internally to get more fairness?
I would give the men and women of the Division of Police an A+. I would give the division itself a C. And they are working against, the circumstances they're working in, are challenging. We have made tremendous progress since the consent decree.
Mr. Bibb, if you are elected mayor, will you ask Calvin Williams to stay on
No.
as chief of police?
I'm getting a new chief.
Kevin Kelly, if you are elected mayor, will you ask Calvin Williams to stay on?
Haven't decided yet, but let me just tell you this. If issue 24 passes, it's going to be really hard to find anybody that wants to be chief.
Can I ask which way you're leaning at this point in terms of the chief?
Well, I believe it's time for change.
We're not going to go to questions.
Issue 24 is an issue on the ballot next month that would establish a community policing commission. Kevin Kelly is against issue 24. Bibb supports it. Meantime, today, Bibb sent a cease and desist letter to the Kelly camp saying Kelly is making false claims in his campaign literature by accusing Bibb of supporting efforts to defund police. Kelly says Bibb's complaints are frivolous. You can find the full town hall up now on our website, WKYC.com.
Next on What's New, big plans. One of the nation's largest waterfront parks is on track to soon become reality. What's in the works for Irishtown Bend Park?
Then a Northeast Ohio native is having her comedy special premiere tonight on HBO. We're going to have all the details featuring Phoebe Robinson ahead in Pop Break. And Jason's in for weather today. Jason, what's coming up in the forecast?
Oh, that forecast is getting a little bit dicey over the next 24 hours. Summer has been seemingly unrelenting with heat and humidity levels well above the norm. However, we'll talk about that big changeover coming up. But if you're going out later this evening, expect 70s to stick around with a stray shower, mainly westward. Full forecast is next.
Well, now the latest on building a waterfront park along the Cuyahoga River. Irishtown Bend Park would connect Ohio City, the Flats, and downtown. And after securing necessary funding for the project, it's moving forward. I spoke to planners and local residents about what could be a game changer for Cleveland.
And I think a lot of people can't quite yet get a sense of the scale of Irishtown Bend.
The scale and the ambition to build one of the largest waterfront parks between New York and Chicago is nestled here. 23 acres of green space hugging the Cuyahoga River is on track to become Irishtown Bend Park.
We wanted to make it a more of a public amenity for everyone.
Project organizers updated residents on plans to connect Ohio City to the Flats and downtown.
This is really a once-in-a-generation opportunity to link our neighborhoods down to the waterfront and create a public space that everyone can enjoy.
Irishtown Bend is steeped in Cleveland history, where Irish immigrants working at the docks built their shanties on the sloping banks of the Cuyahoga in the 1800s. Land too soft for buildings, but with so much potential.
And what it's going to do, not just for this neighborhood, but for our region.
Thank you for listening to us. It's encouraging because it makes us want to continue sitting at the table. Thank you so much.
The project included input from residents at nearby Riverview Towers as it becomes the nation's first waterfront park directly attached to public housing.
That it's being totally inclusive, age, ethnicity, ability or lack thereof is exciting.
A plan to connect not just parts of land, but people too.
And I think within the next 4 or 5 years, people are going to see something extraordinary here.
The project is funded through federal, city, county, and private dollars. So for the next 2 years, the hillside will have to be stabilized because it's actually sliding. And after that, construction begins, and we could see the park open by 2026.
This is very exciting. Anytime you can use the waterfront that a city has, I think that's taking advantage of really one of the best natural resources a city has.
Oh, absolutely. And that gem has been sitting there like a diamond in the rough this whole time. You know, Ohio City is just right up the hill, and they've never been able to connect right down to the water. So this makes that connection. It'll be amazing.
I'll give you an example that you and I both know because we both lived there. In Tampa, Florida, I always used to look at the Hillsborough River, which winds right through downtown, and I used to say, why is this not more developed? It's beautiful. It's a waterway running right through the city. Well, they've developed it, and it is magnificent. It attracts people. It's a fun place to go, and hopefully this will have the same impact.
Transformative.
Yes, very cool. Speaking of transformative, I'm getting used to this, Jason. That could be dangerous because we don't see this kind of weather in October.
I mean, you know, the weather is just sort of transforming before our eyes. A beautiful look this evening across Northeast Ohio and also Cleveland. You can see there the skyscrapers looking quite beautiful on this Thursday evening. But I have to tell you, though, the weather is certainly going to be changing. Over the next 24 hours, we're going to be experiencing this change. This is something we would normally expect well down south. That tropical-like air mass has been surging into Northeast Ohio, and it's feeling quite warm and quite sticky out there. Take a look at some of the 24-hour temperature changes here across Northeast Ohio. Elyria, 6 degrees warmer than this point yesterday. Even at the Cuyahoga County Airport, about 9 degrees warmer. It looks like our temperatures are still holding strong in the upper 70s, low 80s, with a strong south-southwest wind elevating our temperatures and also keeping our dew point temperatures. That measures the moisture in the atmosphere, keeping that elevated as well. These are tropical-like conditions out there. So take a look at some of the feels-like temperature. What does it feel like on the skin? Well, it feels like 83 right now. Elyria, 81 over in Mansfield, 82. You can see down in Akron, 81. It feels like at the Cuyahoga County Airport. This is, of course, dealing with that system carving a deep air mass of colder air across the country, stretching from Wisconsin, Michigan, all the way down south through Texas, even the Ozarks right now with a lot of moisture intact. We're sort of on that leading edge side. And as of right now, we're under a slight risk for severe weather. That is from the Storm Prediction Center. That's all the areas shaded there in yellow. This is a 2 out of 5 with the most prevalent threats for us over the next 24 hours going to be damaging wind gusts, lightning, certainly for the Friday night football, and certainly moderate to heavy rain. So your National Design Mark hour-by-hour forecast put this in play motion for you. You can see there, whereas the cold front nears northwest Ohio, we start to develop an area of low pressure. As the front gets near us, at a low area of low pressure, we'll kind of kick it into high gear and transform our area from very warm, dry in some areas, to wet. Moderate to heavy rainfall, even some gusty winds will be in tow. And of course, we cannot rule out the threat for maybe even an isolated tornado. This takes us through Friday night, 10 p.m. and even into early Saturday. We're still talking about moderate to heavy rainfall. Take a look at your Union Home Mortgage 7-day forecast showing that once we get the front on out of here, by Sunday, we open up the door for more sunshine in the afternoon for our Browns game. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, high pressure moves back in, Lynna, and we look quite nice for the most part of next week.
Hey now, very good. Thanks,
like
Jason.
That.
Next on What's New, Casey Musgraves has been taken out of the country category for the Grammys. We'll tell you exactly why and what the artist has to say about it coming up in Pop Break.
Then bringing back the tricks. The quarantine trick king is back with his slick moves. You'll remember this guy when we show you to him. It's worth the watch, and it is, and it's minutes away.
Okay.
Hi, Matt. We're going to be talking about Casey Musgraves, and she's pop now instead of country. Right?
It's time to take a pop break this Thursday. We have exciting news about a popular Netflix show getting another season, and a Northeast Ohio native's HBO special premieres tonight. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, but we start with news of singer Casey Musgraves, who has a message about some Grammys drama. I say drama. Kiara Cotton here with the latest.
That's right, Jay and Lena. Casey Musgraves is not happy with the Recording Academy. According to reports, the 33-year-old singer's new album, Star-Crossed, is not being considered for the country music category. At the Grammys, instead, the album will compete in the pop category, and that didn't sit well with Casey or her team. In a post shared on her Instagram story, she wrote, "You can take the girl out of the country genre, but you can't take the country out of the girl." She said that alongside a picture of her younger self in a red cowboy hat. Musgraves has won 7 CMA Awards, 3 ACM Awards, plus 6 Grammy, of which 5 have been in the country music categories. And Netflix subscribers are in for even more of Joe Goldberg. The hit series You, starring Joe, played by Penn Badgley, has been renewed for a 4th season. The announcement comes just days ahead of the season 3 premiere. The show that revolves around what you would do for love follows Joe, who will do just about anything when love is on the line. Season 3 begins streaming on Netflix tomorrow. And Northeast Ohio native Phoebe Robinson is booked and busy. Still reeling off the release of her 3rd book under her own publishing imprint, the 37-year-old is also preparing for the release of her debut comedy special, Phoebe Robinson, Sorry, Harriet Tubman. In this special, she tackles quarantining with her boyfriend, moderating Michelle Obama's book tour, and failing at being a social justice warrior, just to name a few topics. But many asked, why the name Sorry, Harriet Tubman? Well, here's what she had to say.
It's sort of me going
sorry, Harriet, you worked so hard so I could tell these kind of like silly jokes, but I really wanted it to be just a fun hour.
Phoebe Robinson's Sorry, Harriet Tubman is out now on HBO Max. And of course, I wanted to know if she plans to bring her comedy tour back to her roots, and she told me yes. She says she hopes to get back to touring next year and that Cleveland is definitely on the list. Phoebe and I talked about a wide range of topics in our interview, which you can catch in full now on WKYC.com.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was super excited to talk to her. I'm a big fan of her book.
Yeah.
And she's so cool. Like, I
Down
love
to
when the
earth.
celebrities are humble and like,
self-deprecating.
relatable.
Yeah, she was, right? You know, anything,
Real people.
Yes, absolutely.
anything surprised you the most about her since you're a big fan?
Yes, she said that she doesn't have a Cleveland favorite restaurant, that her dad's vegan cooking is her favorite.
Oh, wow.
I know, so no Slimans, no pierogies, no Polish boy. I was shocked.
Yeah, that is a bit of a shock.
That's a good one.
All right, very good. Thanks, Key.
Sure thing.
Well, today's Worth the Watch may look familiar. Maybe you've even done this a time or two. It appears some quarantine tricks are making a comeback.
Okay.
Some can argue this guy has a little too much time on his hands.
Yeah.
Setting up these trick shots, it takes a while, as you can guess. We've shown him before here on What's New, but he's back making these videos on TikTok. And what gets me is, Lynna, every time he makes one, his reaction is exactly the same.
Yes!
What?
What?
I made it?
Shocking. What? I haven't done this like 50 times to get the right angle and the right expression on my face.
It is pretty cool.
It is.
And he definitely has a lot of time on his hands. But hey, his reaction is priceless every single time. I can appreciate it because I have to admit, during the pandemic, I tried more than one or two of those, and man, does it get frustrating. But when you finally break through and make it, I feel like you won the lottery.
Golden.
It's great.
Coming up, an FDA panel meets today on boosters for Moderna. We talked to NBC's Dr. John about the findings that came in just late this afternoon.
And later, William Shatner is still talking about his real-life voyage into space. What he says was the coolest part about the trip, and being weightless was not it.
And Halloween just right around the corner. We have the top haunts in the U.S. Did any in Ohio make the list? We'll be right back.
Okay. Right.
Sounds good. And now, live from WKYC Studios, this is What's New.
And we welcome you into the second half hour of What's New on this picture-perfect, a postcard day. And a fall day at that. It's unbelievably gorgeous out there. It's October 14th. Your calendar is not lying. Betsy's off today with Lynna. I'm Jay Crawford.
And I'm Lynna. Let's get right to here at 5:30 with our top talker.
It is another tool, another step in adding another tool, rather, in the fight to stop COVID-19. Today, Moderna started presenting its evidence to the FDA to give booster shots to fully vaccinated Americans.
NBC's medical correspondent Dr. John Torres joins us now live with a breakdown of the discussion here. And Dr. John, so we know an FDA advisory committee voted to recommend a Moderna booster shot. So what were the concerns going in for this committee, and how did they come to this recommendation?
And this is the first in 4 steps to get it actually into people's arms, these booster shots. But it looks like all indications that it will happen and probably happen by the end of next week. But essentially what the FDA committee did, this is an advisory committee of experts, they looked at data from Israel. Israel talked to them about their experience with booster shots, particularly Pfizer booster shots, but some Moderna, and particularly those above the age of 60. And they found out a few months after getting your last vaccine, antibodies wore off, case levels went up, and then once they got booster shots, just the opposite happened. Their antibody levels went up and cases started going down. And so they were saying they needed the boosters and they recommend getting the boosters. Then Moderna presented their data and they said, we are wanting to give this booster shot. It's a 50 microgram, it's only half the dose, to people 6 months after they got their last shot, particularly 3 groups, 65 and above, those with underlying medical conditions, and those whose occupations put them at exposure for getting COVID, at a high risk of getting COVID. And looking at the data, the FDA advisor said, yes, we agree with that, 19-0 unanimous vote to go ahead and move forward with this and recommend getting booster shots for those groups.
Doctor, notably, Moderna's protection against hospitalizations has remained very strong. So for anyone who's already received a Moderna vaccine, how then does a booster help? And I heard you mention that it's going to be half the dose. Will that eliminate some of the side effects that came with some of the earlier shots, or no?
And Jay, I'll talk about the side effects first, and that's why they did half the dose. They said half the dose gave the antibody response they wanted and lessened some of the side effects, although they did say the side effect profile seemed to be the same after your second Moderna shot, so expect those types of conditions once you get the vaccine, which are mostly mild for the most part. But also they said, let's go ahead and move forward with this and make sure, again, that those groups are getting it. But if you've had the booster shot, and they wanted to emphasize this, if you've had the vaccines, and they emphasize this, then you are still protected from serious illness, hospitalizations, and deaths. The booster shot helps protect you from that mild illness and maybe even possibly spreading it to others. And so that was the big kind of issue of contention today. But at the end of the day, they went ahead and recommended getting these booster shots. And now the FDA commissioner will look at it, and then the CDC will look at it as well.
And Dr. John, the jury's still out, about mixing and matching boosters, but we are still learning more about that, right?
Right, the jury is still out. Tomorrow they're going to go ahead and look at that at the end of the day. In the morning they're going to look at Johnson & Johnson boosters, and then they'll talk about mixing and matching. And what the data is showing is that mixing and matching might be able to help in some cases, and that's what they're going to kind of drill down into, who should be getting this. And part of it could be just avoiding the confusion of which shot to get, when to get it, where to go to get it. And if you can mix and match, then obviously it'd make it much, much easier. There are some indications that could help, other indications that might not help much, but that's what they'll talk about tomorrow.
All right, very good. Again, step 1 of a 4-step process into eventually getting this booster shot into people's arms. Dr. John Torres, great information. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
And just ahead on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, the next steps in that process before a booster is approved, and a look at the votes anticipated tomorrow. And here in Ohio, health officials continue to urge people to get the COVID vaccine. Today, the Ohio Department of Health held a news conference to push not only the COVID vaccine, but also the flu vaccine. ODH Director Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff said the Delta surge may have plateaued, but the state's hospitals are still seeing some serious situations with the virus.
As we approach the busy holiday season, remember, if you're getting 2 doses of a vaccine, it can take up to 6 weeks or more to gain full protection. And Thanksgiving is just 7 weeks away.
Today, the Ohio Hospital Association also released new data showing that 1 in 6 hospitalized patients in Ohio are COVID positive, and 1 in 4 in the ICU also have COVID. Also today, the Cleveland Clinic released its updated COVID breakthrough infections data, and 15% of all new cases the clinic saw in September were breakthrough infections, meaning those who tested positive were fully vaccinated. The Cleveland Clinic also said today that 90% of the patients who were admitted to the hospital for COVID-19 in August were unvaccinated.
All right, let's get to 3 other top stories we're following now at 5:30. The report cards on Ohio's schools are in, and they show just how severely the COVID pandemic impacted student learning last year. A whopping 24% of students were chronically absent from class last year. Cleveland Municipal Schools scored a 38 out of 120 points. That's down from 61 the year before. Akron scoring 39, and that's down from 67 the year prior. Huge declines. Educators say they are viewing the results as the new baseline from which to track progress going forward.
Unruly passengers aren't the only thing airline personnel are dealing with. People are also bringing guns to the airport in record numbers. The TSA has found nearly 4,500 guns this year at 248 airports, and Cleveland Hopkins is one of them. We talked to Hopkins officials today who say they have confiscated 19 guns in 2021. That's actually slightly below the local annual average, though. But of course, the number of travelers has been well below average. The TSA says the most common excuse, well, people say they forgot that they were carrying loaded guns on their person or in their carry-ons.
And tonight, the Cleveland Orchestra will have its first concert since March of 2020. It's at the Mandel Concert Hall at Severance. The opening night performance begins at 7:30. Attendees must be fully vaccinated or show a negative COVID test from the last 72 hours. Also note, masks are required. Well, we know that Halloween is right around the corner, 2.5 weeks away, and that means very soon we're going to be seeing different kinds of masks out on the streets. But what is in full swing right now, and very big, is the haunted house.
It's just amazing the lengths people go through. Today, the Haunted Attraction Association, there is a group like that, put out its list for the best haunts in the U.S. and several locations here in Northeast Ohio made the list, including Akron's Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory Haunted House. They call it Laboratory because it sounds more creepy, right? And the Factory of Terror in Canton.
All right, that sounds equally terrifying. Ghostly Manor in Sandusky also made the list. I know the owners well, and this one is scary. Along with Spooky Ranch in Columbia Station. The Dent Schoolhouse in Cincinnati is on the list, and the Haunted Hydro in Fremont, also notably very scary. Are you someone that enjoys to be scared?
You know, it's funny because we were talking in the break that I haven't seen Squid Game because it's too violent. Well, again, it shouldn't surprise you. I can't do haunted houses either.
I was always cool with haunted houses because you knew in the back of your mind that they can't hurt you. They can't touch you. But they can still scare the dickens out of you. And what gets me isn't necessarily the things that you see in the house, it's the screams of the other people that are terrifying.
That would be me.
Yeah.
No, I think I was traumatized as a kid because my brother, when we would go through haunted houses, he would, knowing I was terrified, he would hold me out in front of the scary people so that they could, in my face.
Yeah.
And it was just,
you were his human shield. He's pushing you in the front and letting you take all the grief. All right. They are fun.
Brothers.
And I know a lot of people enjoy them. They definitely enjoy them. This is pretty cool, Lynna. Browns defensive end Myles Garrett apparently loves the season. He's taking his game to the next level. This is a picture here from the front of his house. He's turned it into a graveyard for Halloween. And there are, as you will note, some familiar names and numbers on the tombstone. We saw Ben Roethlisberger. Joe Burrow is on there. Lamar Jackson, by the way, all quarterbacks within the AFC North. Mac Jones from New England. Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. That, by the way, will be the quarterback Myles is chasing this Sunday. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Is it bulletin board material? Are they going to take that?
It could be. You know, they use anything they can to get a little edge when it comes to motivation.
I love it, though.
It's all in good fun.
Yeah. We have an entire list of trick-or-treat times across Northeast Ohio right now on our website, WKYC.com, as well as our 3 News app. And they're all in alphabetical order by city, so take a look. If you don't see your city on the list, check back with us. Our digital team is always updating it.
Okay, still ahead on what's new. He can't stop talking about it, and quite frankly, neither can we. William Shatner speaks out about his space trip. We're going to show you what he had to say today after that just over 10-minute ride yesterday.
Plus, supporting local restaurants. The new initiative food delivery service DoorDash is creating to help eateries still struggling. And Jason, what's coming up in the forecast?
Oh, hey guys, if you enjoyed the 80s today, well, I got a little bit of a change to talk to you about. Today was the 3rd time we've been in the 80s just this month, and the warmest since September 27th. But that all's changing in about 24 hours. We'll tell you coming up.
You could be playing golf today.
I'm supposed to be playing golf tomorrow.
Uh-oh.
I picked the wrong day.
Timing might be off, Jason.
Yeah, it might be just a little bit. Today is possibly the last time, Jay, that you probably could have gone out this week, but I have good news for you. Next week is going to look a lot better. So, all right, we can put the plans off to next week. Hey, let's take a live look outside right now. You can see it is very beautiful. We're making for a pretty good evening here across Northeast Ohio. Our next weather maker is not that far away, and that's what we have to talk about. We have our temperatures still elevated well above the normal right now because we have some pretty breezy south-southwest winds moving in, roughly about 5 to 10 miles per hour, but also carrying along more humidity into the mix as well. This is something that you should be feeling down in the southeastern part of the country, certainly not up here in Northeast Ohio. Feels like temperatures are still in the low 80s, all because of this low-level moisture in place. This is the same system that brought snow to the Dakotas just a couple days ago. Whether or not it brings snow to us, I'm calling that a 0 in terms of chances there. But what we're going to experience here is going to be some moderate to heavy rainfall. So as of right now, the Storm Prediction Center has us a 2 out of 5 across much of our area here in Northeast Ohio. That marginal risk, you can see there's a 1 out of 5 that is more for our eastern counties, Ashtabula and also Trumbull. So here are the storm threats for us as far as tomorrow goes at this point. Whether or not we get damaging winds, that's going to be a check. Lightning, check. So Friday night football, definitely bears to be watching with the storms coming through. Hail and tornadoes, possibly. It kind of depends on the energy that's riding along with the storms and if we get any more daytime heating. So the National Design Mart hour-by-hour forecast as we move forward here will show you that showers begin to build in west towards east late tonight into early tomorrow. Monday, or at least tomorrow morning's commute, a little bit of a wet one for some, mainly for our western counties. Through our mid to late morning, we start to increase our threat. We could have some few peaks of sunshine, and that will serve to energize our storms as well. But that southerly flow out ahead of the front will also, again, provide energy for some of the storms as well. Gusty winds following in suit as well. Moderate to heavy rainfall, a threat for some flooding, will likely move in as well with a redevelopment of an area of low pressure. This will kind of kick that front into high gear, and the energy will likely stick around through late evening for Friday into early Saturday with residual rainfall looming through Saturday as well. What does our Saturday look like? Well, because we're close to the lake, we can have some lake effect showers coming in as well. Rainfall accumulations anywhere from 1 to 2 inches, isolated amounts above 2 inches. Your Union Home Mortgage 7-day will show that we have some free rumbles lingering with the rainfall on Saturday. But by Sunday for Jay, if he wants to go out, maybe if he doesn't catch the Brown game, maybe some golfing. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday sure look good to me.
All right, very good. Thanks, Jason. Well, news of William Shatner blasting into space yesterday continues to make headlines. It was big news.
Right, and as the 90-year-old actor is back on Earth, he's now speaking out more on his journey to the final frontier on board Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket. And here's what he said this morning on the Today Show.
All of a sudden, the blue is down below and the blackness of space. Now, space is interesting, the universe lies there, but at that moment, in that big window, it was only black and ominous, and that was death, and this was life, and everything else just stood still for a moment. I was overwhelmed with the experience, with the sensation of looking at death and looking at life, and this, it's become a cliche of how we need to take care of the planet, but it's so fragile.
Yeah, wow. He was a great choice to go because he's so dramatic in the way he explains it. It was black and it was blue.
Life and death.
He's great. At 90 years old, Shatner is now the oldest person ever to go to space. And for him, the 10-minute, 17-second trip to space and back is 55 years in the making.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, what a coup for Jeff Bezos. I mean, brilliant idea to tap him.
It's all about getting,
right?
it's getting attention. And, certainly when you put Captain Kirk up there, we're all going to be interested.
Yeah. Meanwhile, George Takei today was getting, I guess there's been an ongoing feud between the two actors.
Yes, there has been.
And he tweeted some snarky comments about,
really?
Yeah, Shatner boldly going where men have already gone before. I'm like, meow.
Wow. Okay.
Sulu, meow.
Yeah. All right. Little drama there.
Still ahead, using Apple AirPods. Do you have them? For your health. We'll tell you about the new reports out and what the tech giant wants to do with those hearing devices now.
Plus, back to the beginning. This is a love story, 70-plus years in the making, and it still continues today. We're going to introduce you to the Currys. That's coming up in Show Us Something Good. We're going to learn something from them.
Welcome back. Let's get you up to speed with what's new in some top consumer stories. And we've seen that nearly everything we buy is getting more expensive.
Yeah, it's called inflation. It's a real thing. According to the Labor Department, consumer prices overall rose 0.4% in September. And that doesn't sound bad. It's just for 1 month. When you push that year over year, we're paying 5.4% more for all of our goods and services now than we did a year ago. Energy and food prices climbing. Used car prices finally beginning to decline. The supply chain bottleneck is being blamed for the high inflation. Meantime, Walmart, FedEx, and UPS have all agreed to start moving goods 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Apple is exploring ways to make AirPods into a health device that can, among other things, be used as a hearing aid.
Interesting.
Read your body temperature, sure, and monitor your posture. I need that. The Wall Street Journal reports this would further Apple's efforts to add health and wellness features to devices beyond the Apple Watch. Last week, the AirPods Pro added a new feature called Conversation Boost that helps people better understand someone they're talking to in crowded situations.
I think that can be very helpful. The thing is, I see most of the AirPods in younger people, and I'm constantly
Okay, old man, come on.
I'm constantly fighting with my mom. Mom, are your hearing aids in?
Oh.
And she hates wearing them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll be at her house and I'll say something to her, and if she can't see me, she has no idea I've said something. But I just can't envision Mom walking around the house with the AirPods in.
With the white stems coming out, yeah.
I just can't see it. I mean, I would love it if she would,
Yeah.
but I think those are more visible than her hearing aids, which
Are
is the
you
reason
sure
she
she
doesn't
can't
wear
hear
them.
you, or is it selective hearing?
Yeah, probably.
That's what I say about my dad.
Yeah, right now she's yelling at her TV because she's hearing me loud and clearly right now. All right, this is really good news for restaurants. DoorDash is launching a $1 million fund. It's going to support local restaurants impacted by natural disasters. The company will hand out $10,000 grants to eligible businesses who can use the funds for essentials like food and supplies that they would need to make their meals, as well as rent and payroll. A business owner must operate 3 restaurants or fewer, and none of those locations could have generated more than $3 million in revenue over the past year. So the whole idea here is to have this money go to the smaller restaurants that from time to time can really use the help.
Yeah, DoorDash has taken it on the chin recently.
They have.
For their business model,
Yeah.
so, maybe this will help.
All right, coming up next on What's New, an extra special wedding anniversary. We're going to tell you how this couple spent their big day. That's coming up in our Show Us Something Good.
Edward. I just make these names up, Lynna, because they're fun. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, hello. Good evening, and thanks for being with us. I'm Russ Mitchell. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Annie Abraham here in studio talking about Ohio report cards.
book. Today's show is Something Good comes from Alabama. That's where a couple is celebrating, Lynna, more than 7 decades together. Their names, Troy and Melma Curry, 71 years of wedded bliss. And they celebrated their 71st at the place where they first met. It's a little diner called Price's. So, like Price's, they have endured through the years. He was so excited, the owner of Price's, to help them celebrate their special day.
Last week I heard they were having their anniversary and they wanted to come back down
here,
here, and I was just like so overwhelmed that they would come here and spend their 71st wedding anniversary at the store where they first met.
I want to eat there.
Right.
I mean, how cool and fun does that look? Their daughter, Darby, and some friends joined them on their date. And the Currys did share some advice on how to keep their love going for so long. They have 2 tips. Okay. Number 1, Lynna, communication.
Makes sense.
Very important, right? Okay. Secondly, just don't believe in divorce.
You're stuck with me, babe.
Yeah, we better figure this out because I'm not going anywhere and neither are you.
You know, I also read that he still calls her his bride. So
Love
he'll
that.
say, how's my bride doing today?
Yep, 71 years and still going strong. We're out of time. We're back tomorrow. See you at 5.
Stick around for What Matters Most with Russ next.
Now at 6, report card time.
Clearly, we are seeing some impacts, and we know that schools and districts are working hard to address those now.
It's not just students, but entire school districts getting graded on everything from attendance to graduation rates. Amani Abraham explains the changes with this year's rating system. Also, pending lawsuit. The city of Beachwood is being sued by a member of the police department over alleged behavior inside the department and City Hall. Brandon Simmons breaks down the allegations. Airport firearms.
If you carry it into our checkpoint, then that's going to create challenges for you.
Calling it a huge problem